Did you know that even now, in the 21st century, there are islands almost impossible to reach? Some take weeks to approach, yet the final stretch is so dangerous that even experienced crews are forced to turn back. For most of us, Google Earth is the closest we will ever get to them. Welcome to a list of the most impossible to reach islands on the planet. Number 3 on this list was chosen by fugitives because it was remote, badly charted, and almost impossible to find. Island number 4 is surrounded by the greatest concentration of sharks on Earth, and the only way onto the island is up a metal ladder bolted to a vertical cliff in rough Pacific seas. Number 6 is literally called Disappointment Island, and once you hear what happened to the shipwreck survivors trapped there, the name starts to make perfect sense. Number 8 has been landed on only twice, and much of the island visible today did not even exist the last time a human stood there. And the final island has no confirmed human landing, making it possibly one of the last pieces of land on Earth where no human has ever set foot. But first, let's start with number 1. Far out in the North Atlantic, a small green island rises almost vertically from the sea. Reaching the plateau depends on calm water, ropes, and a climb up wet cliffs. Yet people still attempt it for one reason: the flock of sheep living at the top. This is island number 1. Lítla, Dímun, is the smallest of the main Faroe Islands, covering less than 1 square kilometer, but it rises 414 meters from the North Atlantic, and almost its entire lower section is sheer rock. On Google Earth, it looks like a green platform floating above the ocean, often with a single cloud wrapped around the summit. Zoom closer, and the problem appears. There is no harbor, no beach, and almost nowhere to put a boat. There is no regular route to the island. Reaching it requires calm seas, a small boat, and a carefully timed approach beneath the cliffs. From there, visitors still have to climb ropes fixed into the rock before reaching the plateau. And people continue doing this because around 280 sheep live at the top. The island is privately owned by residents of the nearby village of Faroe, whose ancestors bought it at auction in 1850. Each year, farmers cross the water to gather the flock. Getting them back down is an operation that sounds completely unreasonable. Around 40 people travel to the island and climb onto the plateau. They spread out into a line and drive the sheep toward a pen near the northern side. Each animal is caught and restrained. They are then placed into nets, sometimes 5 at a time, and lowered by rope over the cliffs into small rowing boats waiting below. Those boats ferry the sheep to a larger vessel, which carries them back to Faroe. The sheep that live on Lítla Dímun are not fully domesticated. They are semi-wild, adapted to the island's steep terrain, constant wind, and limited shelter. Over generations, they have learned to navigate the cliffs, find grazing in exposed conditions, and survive with minimal human intervention. Lítla Dímun is close enough to be seen from inhabited islands, but reaching the top still requires ropes, calm water, and permission from the North Atlantic. And once you land, the ocean decides when you can leave. From the North Atlantic, we now travel to the Andaman Sea, where a small volcanic island sits hundreds of kilometers from the Indian mainland. Reaching it is difficult, access is tightly controlled, and an entire species of incredible-looking bird survives nowhere else on Earth. This is island number 2. Narcondam Island is a volcanic peak rising 710 meters, or 2,330 feet from the Andaman Sea, around 240 kilometers, or 150 miles northeast of Port Blair. On Google Earth, it appears as a tiny green cone surrounded by open water. The entire island covers less than 7 square kilometers, or 2.7 square miles, and reaching it requires an authorized expedition across one of the most isolated sections of Indian Territory. Tourists are not allowed ashore. Scientific visits are rare, and the only permanent human presence is a small police post near the coast. But Narcondam is famous for something found nowhere else. The Narcondam hornbill lives exclusively on this single island. Its entire global habitat fits inside an area smaller than many international airports, giving it the smallest range of any Asian hornbill. For thousands of years, the bird developed without permanent human settlement. Then, in 1968, India established the police post. The officers brought goats. By the late 1990s, hundreds were roaming the island, eating young plants and preventing sections of forest from regenerating. Trees were also cleared for the camp, plantations and fuel, while hornbills were occasionally hunted for meat. That meant a few animals and one small outpost were changing the only habitat this species had. The goats were eventually removed, hunting was stopped, and the hornbill population began recovering. But Narcondam's isolation created another problem. Its position near international shipping routes, and Myanmar, made it valuable for surveillance. India proposed building a coastal radar station on the island, requiring forests to be cleared inside the sanctuary. Officials wanted security. Conservationists warned that damaging even a small area could affect a species with no backup population anywhere else. Narcondam is difficult to reach because of distance, protected status, and government control. And for the hornbill, this island is its entire world. From the Andaman Sea, we now cross into the South Pacific, to an island so isolated that it was deliberately chosen as a hiding place. For years, its location was marked incorrectly on maps, making it even harder to find. That mistake helped a group of fugitives disappear from the world. This is island number 3. Pitcairn Island sits alone in the South Pacific, around 2,170 kilometers, or 1,350 miles southeast of Tahiti. On Google Earth, it looks like a small volcanic speck surrounded by an almost empty ocean. There is no airport, and reaching it begins with a flight to Tahiti, another flight to Mangareva, and then a 32-hour crossing aboard the island's supply ship, which carries only 12 passengers. Even after that journey, landing is not guaranteed. Ships stop offshore, and passengers are transferred into tenders or Pitcairn longboats for the final approach to Bounty Bay. If the sea becomes too rough, the captain can cancel the landing and leave with everyone still on board. That hostile coastline helped make Pitcairn the perfect hiding place. In 1789, Fletcher Christian and several crew members seized HMS Bounty, cast Captain William Bligh and 18 loyal men adrift, and became fugitives from the Royal Navy. Christian needed somewhere distant, fertile, and difficult to find. Pitcairn had been discovered years earlier, but its position had been charted incorrectly. The island lay hundreds of kilometers from where maps placed it. After searching for 2 months, the mutineers found it in January 1790. They unloaded livestock, tools, food, and everything else they could carry. Then they dragged the Bounty into the bay and burned it so no passing ship could reveal where they were. The island kept them hidden for 18 years. But isolation turned their refuge into a trap. Fighting broke out between the mutineers and the Tahitian men they had brought with them. Murder, revenge, alcohol, and suicide followed. Within 10 years, only one of the original mutineers was still alive. Pitcairn had protected them from the Royal Navy. It could not protect them from each other. From Pitcairn, we now travel across the Pacific to a Colombian island that looks almost impossible to step onto. There is no beach, no sheltered landing point, and almost nowhere for a boat to stop. Its cliffs rise directly from rough seas filled with thousands of sharks. This is island number 4. Malpelo Island is a bare volcanic rock rising from the eastern Pacific, around 490 kilometers, or 305 miles west of Colombia. On Google Earth, it looks like the exposed tip of a drowned mountain range. Its highest point reaches roughly 300 meters, or 980 feet, and almost the entire coastline is vertical rock. The water surrounding it contains some of the greatest shark gatherings ever recorded. Groups of more than 300 hammerheads can appear near the island, while schools of silky sharks may number in the thousands. Whale sharks, Galapagos sharks, and rare deep water species also move through the sanctuary. Divers cross hundreds of kilometers of open ocean to reach these waters, but diving beside Malpelo and standing on it are two completely different things. There is no beach or protected bay. The official access point is a metal arm extending around 15 meters, or 50 feet from the cliff, with a ladder hanging above the Pacific. A small boat has to move directly beneath it while waves lift and drop the deck. Visitors then grab the ladder, climb away from the moving boat, and continue up the steep rock to a small Colombian naval post. Even authorized expeditions can become trapped. A Monaco explorations team planned to spend 2 hours on the island. By the time they tried to leave, the sea had become too rough to descend the ladder. They made 3 attempts, but each one failed. The team had no choice but to spend the night on Malpelo and wait for the ocean to calm. Malpelo is surrounded by thousands of sharks, hundreds of kilometers of open sea, and cliffs with one metal ladder attached to them. Reaching the island is difficult. Getting back off may be even harder. From the shark-filled waters of the eastern Pacific, we now travel thousands of kilometers into the South Atlantic. The next island is so isolated that reaching it requires an almost impossible to arrange research voyage. But the greatest threat there arrived by accident, hidden aboard human ships. This is island number 5. Gough Island lies around 2,700 kilometers, or 1,700 miles, west of Cape Town, in one of the emptiest sections of the South Atlantic. On Google Earth, it appears as a steep mountainous island surrounded by cliffs and open ocean. There is no public route. South Africa reaches its weather station through a dedicated annual relief voyage, carrying the replacement team and everything needed for another year. That isolation helped turn Gough into one of the world's most important seabird colonies. Then a few house mice arrived aboard ships during the 19th century. With no natural predators and millions of nesting birds around them, the mice spread across the island and discovered a food source no ordinary mouse should be able to attack: albatross chicks. A Tristan albatross chick can weigh up to 10 kilograms, or 22 pounds. The mice climb onto the birds at night, bite through their skin, and return repeatedly to feed from the open wounds. Some chicks remain alive for days before dying from blood loss or exhaustion. Researchers estimate that mice destroy more than 2 million seabird eggs and chicks on Gough every year. Then they began attacking adults. In 2021, researchers confirmed the first adult Tristan albatross killed by mice, leaving its chick exposed to the same predators. That same year, conservationists launched an enormous eradication operation. Helicopters spread poisoned bait across the entire island, and for several months it appeared to have worked. Then a monitoring camera photographed a surviving mouse. More were found, breeding resumed, and the population began recovering. Humans need a dedicated ship, helicopters, months of planning, and rare weather windows to operate on Gough Island. The mice arrived by accident, and more than a century later, humans still cannot get them back off. From Gough Island, we now cross the Southern Ocean to a small island south of New Zealand. Its coastline has destroyed ships, stranded entire crews, and trapped survivors far from the emergency supplies meant to save them. Its name could not be more appropriate. This is island number 6. Disappointment Island lies around 475 kilometers, or 295 miles, south of New Zealand's South Island. On Google Earth, it looks like a small green rock beside the much larger Auckland Island. But its western cliffs face directly into the Southern Ocean, where powerful swells arrive with almost nothing to slow them down. Even scientists struggle to land here. Research visits depend on narrow weather windows, and rough seas can cancel the entire operation before anyone reaches shore. Ordinary visitors are not allowed to land at all, yet the island is far from empty. Disappointment Island is the main breeding ground of the white-capped albatross. Around 85,000 breeding pairs crowd its slopes during the nesting season, covering entire sections of the island in birds. The colony is so large that it can be seen across the island from approaching ships. But the name existed long before scientists began counting albatrosses. It was given to the island after early sealers arrived and found the coastline difficult to use, and the expected hunting opportunities far worse than hoped. Then, in 1907, the name became even more appropriate. The ship McDonald struck the cliffs during a freezing gale. Survivors reached land, but the emergency supplies intended for shipwrecked sailors were stored 8 kilometers, or 5 miles, away on another island. They eventually built tiny boats from branches and salvaged canvas and crossed the open water to reach them. Today, Disappointment Island remains surrounded by violent seas, closed to ordinary visitors, and accessible only when the Southern Ocean allows it. The name began as a complaint. The island spent the next 2 centuries earning it. From the Southern Ocean, we now travel to the middle of the Bering Sea, where another uninhabited island in the United States sits hundreds of kilometers from the nearest settlement. Humans reached it, left 29 animals behind, and accidentally created one of the strangest population collapses ever recorded. This is island number 7. St. Matthew Island sits alone in the Bering Sea, more than 320 kilometers, or 200 miles, from the nearest Alaskan village. On Google Earth, it appears as a long strip of tundra surrounded by empty ocean. Reaching it requires a dedicated vessel, and even scientists may wait years for another opportunity to return. That delay helped turn the island into one of the strangest wildlife experiments ever recorded. In 1944, the United States Coast Guard opened a navigation station on St. Matthew during World War II. 19 men were stationed there, and 29 reindeer were delivered by barge as an emergency food supply. But the war was ending, and the station soon closed. The men left without killing a single reindeer. The animals inherited an island covered in thick lichen, with no large predators and nobody controlling their numbers. When biologist Dave Klein arrived in 1957, he counted 1,350 reindeer. Most were large, healthy, and surrounded by food, but the ground was already showing damage. Klein could not find another ride to the island for 6 years. When he returned in 1963, the herd had exploded to 6,000 animals, around 47 reindeer per square mile. The lichens had been stripped away, young animals were becoming smaller, and the warning signs were everywhere. Then, the island disappeared from observation again. By the time scientists returned in 1966, St. Matthew was covered in skeletons. Only 42 reindeer remained, 41 females and 1 male with abnormal antlers. There were no calves. Overpopulation had destroyed the food supply, and an exceptionally severe winter finished the collapse. The final female died in 1981. 29 reindeer reached an island almost nobody could visit. They multiplied into 6,000. Then, every one of them disappeared. From the Bering Sea, we now travel to one of Australia's most remote territories, deep in the southern Indian Ocean. The next island has no permanent population, no regular access, and a landing history measured in single digits. Humans have officially reached it only twice. This is island number 8. McDonald Island lies roughly 4,000 kilometers, or 2,500 miles, southwest of mainland Australia, deep inside the Southern Ocean. On Google Earth, it appears as a small volcanic island beside the much larger Heard Island, but this is one of the least visited pieces of any country's territory. The first documented landing happened in 1971. A helicopter dropped 2 scientists onto the island. They had only 45 minutes to examine it before being collected again. 9 years later, an amphibious vehicle carried another small team ashore. They spent 5 days mapping the coastline, studying the wildlife, and completing the first detailed scientific survey. Nobody has documented landing there since, and the island those scientists explored no longer exists in the same form. During the 1990s, volcanic eruptions pushed lava into the ocean, joined separate rocks together, and completely destroyed the island's vegetation. McDonald Island doubled in size and became almost 100 meters, or 330 feet, higher. Much of the island visible on Google Earth today did not exist during the last landing. In its current form, large parts of McDonald Island have never been touched by a human foot. Australia finally returned to the region with major research voyages in 2025 and 2026. The expedition carried an icebreaker, helicopters, inflatable boats, drones, and teams trained for extreme operations. They still did not land on McDonald Island. Scientists surveyed it from the air and from surrounding waters, preserving 1980 as the last confirmed time anyone stood there. 2 documented landings, 6 days of human presence in total, and an active volcano that has spent the decades since creating an island humans have never fully explored. For the final location, we do not have to travel far. Just 2 kilometers from an island landed on only twice, another piece of land rises from the same violent ocean. It is smaller, harder to approach, and no confirmed human landing appears anywhere in the official record. This is the final island. Meyer Rock rises from the Southern Ocean just 2 kilometers, or 1.2 miles, northwest of McDonald Island. Officially, Australia classifies it as a rock, but scientific reports count it as one of the 3 separate islands in the McDonald group. It reaches only 15 meters, or 49 feet, above sea level. That small size may make it even harder to reach than its neighbor. An expedition would first have to travel roughly 4,000 kilometers, or 2,500 miles, from mainland Australia into some of the roughest waters on Earth. Then comes the nearly impossible part. A large ship cannot simply dock beside Meyer Rock. A small boat would have to pull alongside its exposed cliffs and somehow hold position while waves lifted and dropped it against the rock. From there, someone would still need to climb onto an island almost as high as a 5-story building with no harbor, beach, or protected landing point. The safest option might be a helicopter hovering above while a climber rappelled onto the summit, but there is no confirmed record of anyone ever doing it. The official geographical index records its position, height, naming history, and a photograph taken in 1980. But it records no landing. Even when Australia returned with its most advanced research vessel in 2025 and 2026, scientists surveyed the McDonald group using ships, helicopters, and drones. They still did not set foot here. After all of this, one question remains. Which of these islands would you actually be willing to visit? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe. YouTube has been showing my videos to fewer people lately, so every like and comment genuinely helps convince the algorithm to show them to the world. Thanks a lot for watching.